So once again, good afternoon. My name is Jessica, and I will be moderating today's panel discussion geared toward employers and business groups. And 1 second, I'm just going to double check that we're recording, and we are. Joining me today is Gail Krumenauer, the state employment economist at the Oregon Employment Department, who will talk about labor market information as it applies to businesses and hiring. Sarah Cromwell, the Deputy Division Director of Unemployment Insurance Benefits, who will touch on UI benefit eligibility and how it will be changing. Adam Grieve, a member of our Special Programs Unit, who will talk about the WorkShare program and how it helps employers. And lastly, Karen Hummelbaugh, the Director of the Office of Workforce Investment, Jim Farr, the Division Director of Workforce Operations, and Alberto Rubio, a business analyst, will talk about the workforce resources WorkSource Oregon offers and business services. After the presentation, we will take as many of your questions as we can in the time we have left. As many of you, if any of you would like to have this webinar simultaneously interpreted, please follow the instructions on the slide. It is being interpreted in Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Cantonese. To have this simultaneously interpreted, click the interpretation box in the bottom Zoom bar, choose your preferred language, and then the presenter's voice will be lowered while the interpreter speaks over it. You can also choose to mute the presenter if you want. These instructions will also be put in the chat box. Please remember that we cannot look into or resolve one person's own issue in this public forum, and it is not safe to put your personal information in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded webinar that will be posted online. Please post your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box, in the Zoom meeting, and we will take as many of them as we can after we finish the discussion with our panel. The Q&A box is located in the middle of the bottom bar of the Zoom window. Now with that, I will turn it over to David Gerstenfeld, Acting Director of the Oregon Employment Department, for some opening remarks. Take it away, David.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate the chance to share some information and hear from you. Since the onset of the pandemic, we know that economic and other conditions have been changing rapidly and in ways that we've never seen before. The economy has done things that we haven't seen, and that's required our agency and other parts of the state to do things that haven't been done before too, like new benefit programs for the self-employed. We've seen the scale of people impacted go way beyond what we saw, what was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime recession, the Great Recession, and we've seen it happen overnight, and we've seen more and more frequent, very rapid changes to the economic conditions that we're all dealing with. We've seen that rapid change with the onset of the recession and now with the recovery also. And we all hear anecdotal information about what's going on. We're fortunate to have a great research division at the Employment Department, and they'll be sharing with all of us today some information about what's going on. And they provide data and analysis that guides how the Employment Department can best help businesses and workers, and can provide important information for businesses, job seekers, and others also. And we're going to share some information with you today about what we're seeing in this tight labor market and how the many different parts of the workforce system are shifting to meet the rapidly changing needs. These are the needs of individual workers and also of businesses. Most of the focus in the workforce system for quite a while has been on getting benefits to people. And that has been an incredibly high, historically high level of need that we've been meeting. There's still a need for that safety net for a huge number of people who have various barriers to returning to work. And we're shifting now to not just providing that safety net of benefits, but to also helping people that can return to work immediately do so, and to identify and help people overcome the barriers that might be stopping them from getting back to work. That can be helping people find new careers, get training that they need, or sometimes navigate through possible resources to deal with childcare and transportation issues. In most recessions, there's a transition where we start to focus less on getting benefits to people and more on reemployment. And unfortunately, like with everything else in the pandemic, things are a little bit different than most recessions right now. And that means we're seeing this transition take place while there is still a huge need for benefits to support massive numbers of people in Oregon. So again, we're focused on maintaining that safety net for people who aren't able to work right now, and also helping people who can get to work, and importantly, helping businesses find workers. We know that it's a tight labor market, and we know that having thriving businesses with a thriving workforce is really key to the economic recovery of the state. We also anticipate that things will continue to change rapidly, and you'll hear from the experts today, but wanted to reassure all of you that we are committed to working with businesses, with workers, to help adapt to what they need during these changing times and to partner with everyone to help Oregon's economy grow. And with that, I'll let the experts share some of that information, and I'm going to turn it over to Gail Krumenauer, our state employment economist.
Thank you, David. And thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the competitive labor market that we're in and some of the barriers that are creating obstacles to full participation in that labor market for some, and increasing the difficulty for employers to find workers. This paper is, what I'll share today is a part of a broader paper that was authored together between myself and the Office of Economic Analysis, and that full report is available at qualityinfo.org. I do think it's important for us to carefully consider each of the big pieces that are creating both increased competition in the labor market and holding some people back from it, because that gives us some insight into what we could reasonably expect will help people in each of those situations re-engage with that labor market during a time that we need more workers. What I want to look at first here is the competition in the labor market. What you're looking at here is a visual of the unemployment rate every month in Oregon. That's the blue line. And then the dashed line, the red line, is the long-term average unemployment rate in Oregon, which is 6.8%. And the reason that I highlight that line is because it not only serves as a catalyst in the labor market, once we get below it, it also provides some key insights into differences that we saw coming out of the Great Recession and now coming out of the pandemic recession. So if you look in the middle of that graph, you see that gray area that was the Great Recession. And the unemployment rate did what unemployment rates do in recessions. It shot up. And then it took 5 years for that unemployment rate to march back down to that dotted red line. And again, the reason I point that out is because within a handful of months after we crossed down below 6.8% unemployment, that's the point when employers who respond directly to us through our job vacancy survey started telling us for the first time that the primary difficulty they were having filling their vacancies was a lack of applicants or labor shortages. And at that same time, that was the first time coming out of the Great Recession that we saw real wages rise in Oregon. And so if we think of that as our expectation, given what happened during the last recovery, it has to come as a shock that after we saw Oregon's unemployment rate spike to its highest point ever in the pandemic recession, it got back down below that long run average in 7 months. And as hiring has heated up, particularly in the first quarter of 2021, we've seen that employers are facing fierce competition for a below average amount of available labor for their job openings. Leisure and hospitality alone added more than 13,000 jobs in March. That is 5 times the rate that Oregon's overall economy was adding jobs going into the pandemic. And so now, a handful of months after we've come below that long run average, we see what we saw before. We see hiring bonuses and rising wages. And those leisure and hospitality employers, who are the ones that I think we think about the most in terms of the tight labor market, they're not just competing among themselves. There are big retailers and big online or e-tailers that are advertising $16, $17, $18 an hour as their minimum wage. And if they're in your community, that's creating even more competition. We actually went and looked at those who lost their jobs in accommodation and food services, so restaurants and bars, during the pandemic. And by the end of 2020, more than 12,000 of them were working in retail or transportation and warehousing. Now that happens to some extent every year, but it happened even more coming out of the pandemic. Now, in addition to labor, the labor market competition, we know the unemployment rate isn't capturing everybody that could be involved in the labor market. We've got two things that are happening. One, our labor force isn't growing as much as it could. And second, right within our existing labor force here, we're not getting as full of participation as we'd like to see. So first, I want to talk about our labor market not growing as much as it normally does, because that restricts the amount of available workers coming into the state. And every year since the mid-1980s, Oregon has primarily grown its labor force by net in migration. That means people moving in from other states and other areas. And it's not just retirees, it's the workforce that's moving in. And so we've seen that during 2020, that inflow was down by 20%. And that was not the first year that we've seen it. We've seen this decline happening for a few years. So how can we get that increased flow of labor force back into Oregon? Well, first, largely in, the pandemic being under control, because that's what drove a lot of people staying in place in 2020. But also affordable housing has been an increasing issue for Oregon for years, and especially in places like the North Coast, where we've heard for a long time that affordable workforce housing is nearly impossible to come by. That hasn't gotten any better yet. Within the labor force that's right here, though, we know that we have some people that are being held back. And I think everybody wants them to be able to get back into the labor force because we know we need workers. One of the things that we found out is that the unemployment rate, we've known that it doesn't measure people who aren't in the labor force, who aren't actively seeking work or available or able to get a job. They're not considered part of the labor force, regardless of whether or not they're receiving any benefits. And we know from the household survey that determines the unemployment rate, they've been asking supplemental questions since the pandemic. And what we found is that in the first quarter of 2021, 45,000 Oregonians said they were sitting out the labor market due to COVID-19 concerns. 45,000 jobs would be a huge year of growth. So that's a significant portion of the labor force that's just not showing up right now. The key to hopefully re-engaging them in the labor market is likely vaccination. And I know that every adult who wants a vaccine in Oregon or anywhere in the US can get one. And if you were that adult who signed up the first day that was true, and you got your vaccine that very first day that it was available to everyone, and you finished your series, you would be considered fully vaccinated for your 2-week period afterwards, last weekend if it was Pfizer, and next weekend if it was Moderna. And that's been the bulk of what's been distributed. So we've seen progress happening. About half of the adult population is either partially or fully vaccinated. And that's great progress. And that should hopefully ease this concern as we go into the future. But we're just not quite there yet. Another thing that could be holding back the labor force is the lack of full-time in-person schooling. It puts working parents in a bind. And I've also seen national research that says in aggregate, nationwide, it wasn't the biggest deal. Oregon is not nationwide, though. Nationwide, we have these huge populous states like Florida, Texas, New York that have had fully in-person schooling for some time now. And Oregon's a relatively small state, and we've been relatively to one end of the continuum with this. Still, as of last week, 2/3 of Oregon's K-12 schools were either fully or partially remote, mostly partially. But what that means effectively is that those kids are in a school building 4 to 5 hours a day, roughly, I think 2 days a week. And we know from our job vacancy survey that 4 out of 5 jobs that are being offered are for a full-time position. And even at the height of the pandemic, 3/4 of jobs couldn't be teleworked. Now, also going into the pandemic, there were 350,000 Oregonians who were in the labor force, and they had children present in their home, and the job that they were working by definition couldn't be teleworked, and there were no non-working adults. Every adult in that household was working. So if those kids are still largely home part of the time, somebody is probably staying home with them. At some point, though, it comes down to money, right? Grandma's vaccinated now, maybe the kids can go there while the parents get back to work, right? In addition, we've seen a very strong fiscal response to the pandemic that is tremendously brightening our overall economic outlook, but also reducing some labor force participation in the short term. Now, I'm going to talk about enhanced insurance benefits in a second. But in the meantime, I think it's important to note that Oregon's total personal income is about 20% higher today than it was before the pandemic. And if you're looking at this graph, you can see that that dotted line is significantly higher than at any other time in a recovery since at least 1990. And of the $24 billion of additional federal funds that have flowed to Oregon, enhanced unemployment insurance benefits alone is 1/4 of it. So that's not a small number, but those direct fiscal stimulus payments and other direct federal funds that came in are much more significant. But let's take a look at the enhanced unemployment benefits because they're not insignificant. And to the people that have been receiving them, they've been a lifeline. We know that during the first 3 months of 2021, weekly payments for regular unemployment insurance benefits was $670, and that's about $16.75 per hour. That also represents full wage replacement for people that were receiving it. And a little perspective, if you worked full-time year-round for $16.75 an hour, that's $35,000 a year. That's well below the median wage for all Oregon workers, which was more than $50,000. So while that may not be enough to get ahead, and I would argue that it's not at $35,000, if you paired it with some of those other federal fiscal stimulus, those workers who have concerns or hesitations or labor force barriers right now are being more broadly supported by that broader safety net. And that's true in PUA as well, where the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program created a way that self-employed contractor freelance workers would have some sort of safety net, not a get-ahead safety net on its own, but paired with other things like the Paycheck Program could help them survive until that self-employment work picked up again. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah for more on unemployment insurance.
Thank you, Gail. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk about the unemployment insurance aspects of our agency's reemployment work. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have suspended and changed many normal requirements around individuals' engagement in work-seeking activities as a condition of receiving their unemployment insurance benefits. Now that the economy is opening back up and it is getting safer for businesses to reopen, we are starting to phase the work-seeking requirements back in for all Oregonians who can return to work. For the regular unemployment insurance program, the phase-in will begin with requiring claimants to complete registration in WorkSource Oregon's iMatch Skills, which is our online job matching system that matches individual skills to active job openings. The next step will be requiring claimants to complete the welcome process, which includes a one-on-one interview with WorkSource Oregon staff to orient claimants to our job search services and resources. As we phase in the registration and welcome requirements, we will also reinstate pre-pandemic rules under which individuals' benefits will end if they do not complete the iMatch registration and participate in the welcome process if required. Next, we will phase in pre-pandemic work search requirements. Individuals will be required to actively seek work each week as a condition of receiving benefits. The required weekly work-seeking activities will include 2 direct contacts with employers to inquire about a job opening or apply for a job, and 3 other activities designed to get the individual back into the workforce. At the same time, we are also reviewing the able, available, and actively seeking work eligibility requirements for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA program. Those requirements are being finalized and will be announced soon. Additionally, we are reviewing actively seeking work eligibility options for self-employed PUA customers, as we want to make sure that they allow the best opportunities for customers to safely reopen and begin restoring their businesses to pre-pandemic levels. We will notify customers in advance of their eligibility requirements to ensure that all of our customers are aware of their requirements before they become effective. In the meantime, PUA claimants are invited to register for work in the iMatch Skills system to take advantage of our reemployment resources. To be clear, there are still COVID-related reasons that might relieve certain claimants of some of these eligibility requirements. A couple of examples are if the individual is required to quarantine, or as Gail referenced, if the individual has children in a hybrid school. However, the availability of such relief will be updated to reflect current economic and public health conditions as time progresses. As the economy reopens, more and more individuals begin to seek work. Businesses are likely to experience job refusals by candidates for job openings. Job refusals are potentially disqualifying events for regular UI claimants. Employers can report job refusals by going to the Unemployment.Oregon.gov website, to the employer section of the quick links, and clicking on the Report Employees Not Returning to Work link. When we receive job refusal reports, we investigate what happened and evaluate the situation, determine whether or not the job refusal was a disqualifying event. Additional information for employers about unemployment insurance is located on the Unemployment.Oregon.gov website. And now I'll turn it over to Adam with information about the WorkShare program.
Thank you. The WorkShare program is one of several offered through the Special Program Center. Our purpose is to support businesses in avoiding layoffs due to temporary downturns far beyond the pandemic. In this situation, the pandemic, employers will be able to bring back their employees whom they temporarily laid off into the WorkShare program at a reduced schedule, 20 to 40% of what their customary hours would be, where they will be receiving their wages at a slightly reduced rate, while they continue to receive a supplemental portion of their unemployment insurance and the additional $300 federal adjustment through September 4th, 2021. Participating employees will also be exempt from the work search requirements while on WorkShare. The requirements for eligibility are as follows. Businesses must have 3 or more eligible participants who are employed for 6 months full-time or 12 months part-time at the time of their temporary layoff. Their hours and wages must be reduced by 20 to 40%. Those employees can be brought back into the qualifying WorkShare reduction range. The employees must be fully available for work. Benefits such as medical, retirement, leave accrual rates, etc., must be offered the same as if they were working full-time. And finally, they must qualify for an Oregon regular unemployment claim. Our application process is very straightforward. You will find our program application and participant list on our website, www.oregonworkshare.org. Fill out the application and the participant list and upload both through the OED Contact Us form. Our approval lead time is approximately 1 week. If you have any questions or problems with the process, please reach out to us and we can help. In addition to WorkShare, there are other specialty programs which can potentially benefit claimants. These are the apprenticeships program. Electricians, plumbers, heavy machine operators, etc., are examples of different apprenticeship trades where guided on-the-job training happens alongside classroom instruction. Apprenticeship claimants may claim UI benefits while attending the classroom instruction required for their jobs. The training on employment insurance allows eligible dislocated workers to attend school up to and including associate degrees, except transfer degrees, or it may be used for a vocational training program and receive regular unemployment insurance benefits at the same time, so they can continue to care for their families and obtain employment. This program does not pay for the training itself, but removes the work search requirements while they are attending school full-time. There's the Trade Act. When a worker becomes unemployed due to increased imports from or a shift in production to foreign countries, the displaced workers can receive benefits through the Department of Labor's Trade Adjustment Assistance Program. And finally, self-employment assistance, a program that helps Oregonians with a valid regular unemployment claim start their own business. I will now turn it over to Karen with Workforce Investment.
Great, thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Hummelbaugh, and I am the Director of the Office of Workforce Investments at the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Our office coordinates Oregon's public workforce system efforts. And the workforce system here in Oregon is really an ecosystem of state and local partners, and it includes the State Workforce and Talent Development Board and our 9 local workforce boards, as well as partner agencies, including the Oregon Employment Department, the Oregon Department of Human Services, Self-Sufficiency, and Vocational Rehabilitation offices, the Commission for the Blind, and many nonprofit and training organizations throughout the state. As we move toward reopening our economy, all of these organizations in the system have a part to play in serving both our neighbors and our business and industry needs. Primarily, we serve you through our jointly staffed WorkSource Oregon offices across the state, as well as our virtual services and appointments. During the pandemic, even though our centers were forced to close, the workforce system responded quickly, and we pivoted funds to respond to the unexpected business closures and shutdowns. And while the big story over the last year is really focused in on unemployment insurance benefits, the workforce system did many things for business and industry, including providing nearly $3 million in business grants for layoff aversion strategies, receiving $6 million in federal COVID grants for PPE and other recovery efforts. Our State Workforce and Talent Development Board issued $1 million in innovation grants for healthcare response. And during all of this, we continue to also serve businesses with layoff assistance and pre-layoff activities to help with work share and other supports for workers and businesses in transition. In addition to these business services that we are going to continue to provide you, the system helps with other supports workers need to return to their jobs or find a new opportunity. And those might include potential training, upskilling, or certification, or other supports needed to return to work, including childcare, transportation, work equipment, or mental health assistance. And we've worked with every local workforce area throughout the state and their WorkSource centers to develop reopening plans, and everybody is ready to serve you. These plans include safety measures for customers and staff, timelines for reopening, and the service delivery models that will be deployed in each area. I'm happy to share that all of those plans are approved and we're ready to reopen on our appointment basis. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Jim, now, who's going to share with you exactly what the reopening will look like around the state.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Farr. I'm the Division Director for Workforce Operations. As Karen mentioned earlier, all our centers have been closed now for over a year. And she also mentioned that we're working on some reopening plans that have been approved. All of our plans have safety measures in place and are outlined in the CDC guidance. We want to make sure both the staff and customers are safe before we do reopen. So right now our plan is on June 1st, we are going to open centers by appointment only. And on June 1st, it's going to be more for individuals who may need to meet with a staff member or a partner staff to either turn in items or meet with them on a one-on-one basis to get more information from the individual. Currently, right now, we don't quite allow that where people come into the center to meet with folks. And then on July 6th, it's going to be more of a open up by appointment only again, but this is going to be more for our resource room. So we'll allow folks to schedule an appointment to come in to use one of our resource room computers, whether it be for resume writing, work search, that they may not have resources of their own or capability of using a computer. They may not have any resources to be able to do that. They will also be able to meet with individual staff on a one-on-one basis as well. We're providing various different job referrals, workshops, resume writing, career planning, and training opportunities for building up skills for current jobs or even new jobs. This is all being done virtually. And so when we do open in July 6th, where we'll allow folks to come in and do resume writing, like I said, we'll have computers available for those individuals. We also have been offering various different resources for employers, from Drive Up through job events, teaching employers how to register and unmet skills, veteran services, on-the-job training, working with local boards on training, to provide training for skill up to job seekers and career paths. And now I am going to turn it over to Alberto. Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adalberto Rubio. I am the business analyst for the Oregon Employment Department, and the business services team has made several adjustments to ensure quality service delivery during the pandemic. And now we are offering 3 additional services to our customers: linking recruitment, virtual hire events, and drive-through hiring events. The linking project started back in July 2020 as another tool in our toolbox with the purpose to connect Oregon employers with top talent and to drive brand awareness to the WorkSource Oregon resources. We want businesses and job seekers to know who WorkSource Oregon is and the service that we have available to them. Our partnership with LinkedIn has allowed us to increase our presence in social media to promote employment and career opportunities to Oregonians. We have 12 recruiter licenses that allow us to post listings and source candidates locally and nationally. We have assisted many job seekers with finding employment from $18 an hour to $180,000 a year. Through different linking campaigns, we have reached over 300 business owners and over 2 million individuals branding the WorkSource Oregon services. We average about 400,000 impressions in 30 days when we share or post information about programs and services we offer. WorkSource Oregon LinkedIn page has over 7,000 followers who see our resources, recruitment opportunities, events, and more. 70% of the Oregon workforce have a LinkedIn profile and LinkedIn. So please follow our page at WorkSource Oregon LinkedIn. We also have the virtual hire events allow us to bring job seekers and employers together to fill open positions and to find talent in a safety of coordinated virtual space. We implemented this service last year and we had done several events for one employer or several employers at the same time. Drive-through job fairs. This is another option to connect job seekers and employers, especially for candidates that have no computer or internet access, or they just don't feel comfortable using the virtual tool. We do these events on empty parking lots alongside with employer representatives while following all safety guidelines. Job seekers are able to connect with employers while remaining in their cars. Employers cannot interview while maintaining social distance, and we offer all these services across the state. Thank you.
Thank you to our panel for giving us all of these updates and information. As a reminder, you can register for future webinars at unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. Our next one will be Thursday, June 10th at 1 p.m. and we'll be covering unemployment benefits and work search requirements for job seekers. As a reminder, you can also sign up for our email updates at unemployment.oregon.gov. With our remaining time, we are now going to go into our Q&A box to answer some of your questions. Please remember that this is a public forum, so do not put any confidential information into the Q&A box. We know that there will be a lot of questions, and we want to let you know upfront that we will get to as many as we can in the time we have left, and we'll tell you everything that we know so far. Thank you for joining us, and now we'll go into the Q&A box for your questions. So our first question comes from Anne. The question is, if you have an employee furloughed, at what point should they receive their accumulated vacation pay? And I'm assuming that might be a UI question, it sounds like.
And this is, David, I can take that. I don't think that's something actually that our agency has direct authority over. When people receive pay, there's sometimes an issue about whether it will impact their benefits. But if you're an employer that's looking at when you're required to make that payment to your employee, probably the best bet, if you don't have someone that provides that kind of employment legal advice, is the Bureau of Labor and Industries does have a lot of information on their website and through a technical assistance line to help employers. and their website is Oregon.gov/bully. And sorry, that's not something that we have direct authority over, so we don't want to give you an answer that may not be the accurate one for the agency that's enforcing it.
All right, and I'm just going to ask our helper, Steph, to please put that link in the chat box so that everybody has it. All right, so the next question comes from an anonymous attendee, and this sounds like it's for Gail. Please describe the relationship of employment rate versus the number of people on unemployment. Do we not still have far more people on unemployment than in February of 2020?
This is a great question, particularly because of the relationship or lack thereof in terms of benefits and unemployment. Just to answer the numbers count. So in April of 2020, there were 271,000 unemployed, statistically unemployed Oregonians. And as of April 2021, that is down to 129,000. Before the pandemic, it was about 74,000. So still elevated, but significantly lower than it was before. And as you saw earlier, with that rapid decline in the unemployment rate, that is fueled by the rapid decline of people who are actually statistically unemployed. Now, I keep using the word statistically because prior to the pandemic, there wasn't ever a time that you could be unemployed, but be not in the labor force. Because in order to be in the labor force, you had to be actively seeking, available, and able to take a job if it was offered to you. You can be unemployed and not in the labor force statistically right now. Like I mentioned about the 45,000 people that are sitting it out for COVID reasons. They may be unemployed. They may have just been out of the labor force, but thinking about getting in. But the thing is that with the work search requirements that we're reinstating right now, during this period of time when those were suspended in their traditional format, that broke that that requirement to be in the labor, to be getting unemployment insurance benefits, you had to be in the labor force. So we've had this temporary thing related to the pandemic and the unique stresses that it put on families and on the economy, where that wasn't necessarily true. So to say that even though we paid 118,000 people unemployment insurance benefits last week, not necessarily all of them are counted among those who are unemployed.
Thank you, Gail. All right, so this next question also comes from an anonymous attendee, and it sounds like it might be geared toward Karen or Jim, and it's asking, what are some ideas for getting reluctant workers back to work? And I guess it's like, what resources do we have to help get workers back to work?
Jim, you can definitely take this, but I'll just start with the centers do have a variety of resources available that we spoke to earlier. This question probably has a lot to it, but we certainly want to encourage people, and we're doing this through social media, through outreach, and through letters that people are getting with their claims, to make sure everybody understands that we have many options for them and that they have plenty of work opportunities as well. And so we're really trying to push that. Hopefully folks on this webinar will also help to share that information so that we can assure that everybody who can work is really looking for work and getting the skills they need to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would echo what Karen had to say, but we do have staff available. If they call a local WorkSource center, they can go ahead and talk to a staff member, and they'll be able to assist them with any other work search needs that they may have, and any fearful things they may have about interviewing, or if their resume needs to be looked at, they can help them with that, and kind of go over those things and review them with them and help them with any types of job search activities they may want help with to get them in the right direction.
Okay. This question comes from Michelle, and it sounds like it's more towards Sarah. If an employee is working less due to work only slowly coming back, do they have to start looking for another job?
It would depend on the individual circumstances. We'll be mailing notices out and emailing notices out to each individual claimant, letting them know what their work search obligations or when their work search obligations will kick back in and what they'll need to do as far as registering for work or attending a welcome process. So there will be communication to individuals in various circumstances about what they need to do. I think also I would kick this to Adam next. There are options for employers whose work is slowly coming back to partner with the WorkShare program to provide some benefits and supplemental benefits to help get more people back to work faster. Adam?
Thank you. Yeah, the question of if an employee is working less due to work only slowly coming back, do they have to start looking for another job? And if that employee is currently claiming on a regular UI, regular unemployment, then I guess that in this situation, they would have to complete those job search requirements. But if your business is able to join the WorkShare program and the employee is eligible for it, they would be able to continue receiving those UI benefits until you can bring them back up to a full-time hours, and other employees as well, along with not having to do all of those extra parts of receiving regular unemployment benefits. And I would ask you to please call us at Special Program Center at Oregon.workshare.org and get in touch with us about that.
Thank you, Adam and Sarah.
And Jessica, I was just going to add one thing. Typically, if somebody is working part-time, and I think there was a related question about some recent legislation, we do still require people to be looking for work because the unemployment system is there to be a safety net when people are trying to work but aren't working full-time. But what type of work they're looking for may depend on their circumstances. So if somebody has a job that is a permanent job that's 32 hours a week, for instance, if the other work that they're looking for is another part-time job to fill in the gap so that they're employed full-time, that would meet the work search requirements. And there is legislation that came out that we'll be sharing some more information publicly about in the next couple of days that really just lets people earn a little bit more before it starts impacting their weekly benefit amount. It doesn't change the requirements of what they need to be doing to get benefits. And it is a law that's in place pretty much through the end of this calendar year as a temporary measure, as a way that the legislature saw to encourage people that are particularly low-wage workers who this bill impacts the most to go back to work at least part-time without it immediately removing the safety net they've been relying on.
Thank you, David. All right. This next question, I don't think we have a solid answer on, but I do want to throw it out there because I know it is something that we are currently working on. And I think this is more geared toward possibly David and Sarah as well. When should those on PUA get more information regarding policy changes such as searching for work or whatever similar changes that may happen in the months ahead? Once again, I don't think we have a solid answer, but it might help in just giving an idea.
Sure, we are actively working on that. There's been really limited guidance from the federal government so far, and PUA is a federal benefit program. It's also a program that has never really existed when we're not in a pandemic situation. So we're hoping within, to be able to start providing some information. It'll probably be about a week or two. And as with people on regular benefits, our intent is to give advance notice so that we're letting people know what's expected and giving them some time to make sure that they're doing that. And our goal is to do the same as with regular unemployment. The activities that somebody has to do aren't there as a punishment. It's really there just to make sure that they are looking for work and that they're able to work if they get offered a job. We just have to look at what that means, particularly for people that are self-employed, where the usual rules don't quite fit.
Thank you, David. All right, so the next question would be for Alberto. It comes from Carla. How can I request assistance from my local office on hiring events or a drive-through fair?
Depending on your location, you can contact your local workforce center, and they will connect you with the business services team. And then we can set out your virtual events or
or drive to event, whatever fits, whatever is best for you. But yeah, you can contact the WorkSource Center, and I can put that information on the chat for you.
You can also find all of our WorkSource Center phone numbers on our new Return to Work landing page, which is unemployment.Oregon.gov/return to work.
Also, we have, I forgot to mention, also we have information on our LinkedIn page and the WorkSource Oregon LinkedIn page. You can find information about drive-through events and virtual hire events too. I will put that information on the chat room.
Thanks, Alberto. Okay. All right, so this one is probably geared more towards our WorkSource people. I'm not quite sure who exactly, but I'm sure one of you will know the answer. So if somebody has over 80 retail jobs, would it be best to only open one on our site and then the job seeker be directed, to only open one on your site and then the job seeker be directed to our website, which would then see all the openings? So I'm guessing they're saying if they have the opening on our WorkSource Oregon site and then they get directed to the employer site that has all of the openings. And I'm assuming it's for similar, like 80 positions of like the similar job. If that's Karen or Jim or somebody.
Alberto.
I'm sorry. Well, I was putting the thing on the chat room. Can you repeat the question?
Don't worry. I'll repeat it. So if somebody has over 80 retail jobs, would it be best to have only one opening on the WorkSource Oregon site, and then the WorkSource Oregon site directs people to the business site, which would then is where they would see all of the openings?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Okay, I also see a lot of people are requesting a copy of the slides. We do send out an email after the, probably tomorrow, to follow up with all the registrants that will include the recording of this webinar, but I can also include the slide deck for everybody to have for reference. All right. Does a job seeker have to seek work if they are going back to their pre-pandemic job? So it sounds like almost like a temporary layoff situation, which I would believe would be.
At this point in time, the work-seeking activity rules are based on temporary rules the department adopted during the pandemic. We are phasing in the actively seeking work requirements for individuals who are still receiving unemployment insurance benefits and have not yet returned to work. So the circumstances generally are, as I described, specifically whether an individual will need to seek work. That would be a determination we'd need to discuss with the individual.
Okay. Okay, so since most interviews are online, is it possible to look for work and interview online and be out of town for more than 3 days and still claim the week even if you're not in town? So several parts to that question.
And I can jump in unless Sarah was anxious to. So you certainly can do that work search while you're out of town. There is still a requirement, though, that you are in your labor market area, and that if you're out of your labor market area for most of the work week, then you would not be eligible for benefits. And the issue there is really that the system's designed around supporting people for each week that they're doing everything that they can to work. So there's actually some statutes that we don't have much authority over, but the theory behind them is that if you were offered a job, if you were contacting an employer and they said, yes, we want to hire you, start tomorrow, you need to be able to start that next day in order to retain your benefit eligibility.
Thank you. All right, so the next question goes to Jim or Alberto. And it is, does WorkSource Oregon also help employers in the construction industry with finding employees? They've been having a really hard time finding employees outside of the pandemic.
Yes, we do help all industries. Construction is one of the industries that we really focus on into in a lot of areas. And Jam, here we have a WorkSource Center in McMinnville that can be able to support you finding employees for construction.
Okay. And then what about those industries whose jobs are waiting due to the government restrictions? So in this particular example, it's the entertainment industry. So they're waiting for the government to allow them to open up.
I can jump in on, and maybe we can get clarity. I think that's probably a question about an individual looking for work and whether they're able to keep getting benefits. You are still required to keep looking for work. So it would be doing the outreach, even if it's to businesses that aren't able to be open or doing performances, for example, to the public right now. But if they may be hiring to start doing that in the near future, still need to be doing those activities each week once those normal rules are in place to make sure that you are trying to get back to work as quickly as possible. It's also something where the workforce system can certainly help if people are looking, maybe they know that their regular job isn't going to be around either permanently or for a period of time, whether it's weeks or months. We can work with you, the workforce system can, to look at what your skills and experience are and find other positions, even if they're temporary ones, to help support you until your normal occupation is open and hiring again. And that's one of the things that they're really good at, is looking at your background and kind of translating what that experience is to what the types of jobs are that are being hired for right now.
Thank you. All right, this next question looks like it would be best for Karen or Jim. And it says they've experienced difficulty finding training and educational opportunities through WorkSource in the past. That advanced skills acquired from liberal arts and other bachelor programs. What training programs would you recommend for those who have a 4-year degree?
Yeah, this one's challenging without knowing the individual circumstances, but certainly if you're having challenges with getting something in the field that you got your bachelor's degree in, there are lots of other industries that require less than a 4-year degree if you want to just switch like occupations completely. One of those is clearly construction that was just mentioned earlier, healthcare. Those are places where you can enter those with some short-term training, certification, or even an apprenticeship program. So if you were looking to switch careers completely, I'd also recommend, Adalberto mentioned the LinkedIn page, which is a great way to connect with people. And the state of Oregon is hiring, and a lot of people with bachelor's degrees get jobs that way with experience. I know the employment department's hiring a lot lately as well. So they're an employer that would be great to work for. So that's something else to consider when you have a sort of general bachelor's degree that may not have a specific skill set with it, so you may be able to transition into maybe state or local or county government work.
Thank you, Karen. All right, this next question is for Sarah. What if we have employees refusing work hours? Is it best to get that in writing, and would you suggest anything further? Oh, you're muted if you're talking.
On our Oregon.gov website, we do have a link that employers can use. It's in the quick links section on that page, and they can click on the option to report an employee refusing to work. If the employer does that, or if anybody aware of somebody refusing to work, we'll then investigate what's going on with that and determine whether or not it should affect somebody's benefits. But the best course of action would be to definitely report it to us using the form that's available online.
All right. And with that, we are going to end the webinar. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time to present and answer these questions. As a reminder, this was a recorded webinar and will be posted on unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars, and it will also be on our YouTube channel. And when we send our follow-up email, I'll be sure to include the slides for everybody as well. On that note, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.